and things can go wrong. I mean, what I do, I'm constantly learning in the way that I'm reading, I'm listening to podcasts like yours, I'm talking to people and like doing trainings and so on. And then it doesn't help you if you just know things. And that's, I think, one of the biggest mistakes in our culture. You think if you know things, then you're good. No, you're just good when you apply things. And that's a difficult part.
Welcome to Learn or Be Learned. We either learn from others or others learn from us. The former is able to help us become a better, faster you. Follow me weekly as I dig up stories like a true anthropologist would on one of the 3 series called Guest Conversations, Book Applications, or my Small Talk Explorations. I'm your host, Shiva Danshekar, and let's talk. All right, welcome back, friends. So today I am here with Priscilla Schelp. Priscilla, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit to the group?
Yes, I'm Priscilla. I'm Swiss German. I'm a founder on Moderator. Yeah.
So I saw your bio and you said you've also sailed around the Atlantic. You love to play polo, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. So, okay, I have a couple questions about that before we get in.
Yeah.
I checked out one of your podcast episodes you were in, and you talked about polo, and you talked about how, and I didn't know this. I thought maybe polo is a almost like a team sport with you and the horse, but you mentioned that a good polo player has like 6 to 12 horses, right?
Yeah, like professional players need a lot of horses because it's quite exhausting for the horses. So there are rules that you have kind of chuckers, so that are like halftime in football. You have like different chuckers, and you need for every chucker you need a different horse. Because in the past horses collapsed. So
Mm-hmm.
one chucker is like 7.5 minutes, and then you have to switch.
Right. So in the movies where you see someone riding on the horse for a long time, that's not realistic. Do they get exhausted fairly quickly?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like after 7.5 minutes, and professional players
Uh-huh.
even switch in between. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
So how do you build a connection with a horse if you have like 12 of them, right? Because it's almost like you need to tell the horse which way to go and stuff. It's almost like a team thing, right? You build this connection with them. How do you build that if you have so many horses? I feel like that could also be applicable to like the businesses and stuff you do now.
Exactly. It's basically like if you're a team leader in a company, then I think you need to adjust to every different person, and you need to make the effort to get to know every single one of them and how they
Hmm.
work, what motivates them, what they are scared of. And it's the same with horses. So just to clarify one thing, I don't have 12 horses. So I'm playing actually the ones of the professional players and owners of the club in Frankfurt. And but yeah, that's basically how it works.
You said that it's like, building team with when you're in business and stuff and you have to learn the strength and weaknesses of the horses. Is there a big learning curve for someone that wants to play that has never played before? For example, me.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify one thing. I think the biggest misconception is it helps if you're a good rider, but actually a lot of people start directly with polo, and you start by having your lesson split into the riding part and then the playing part where you train with the ball and the stick, and that you can even do with a shorter stick in the park. So I sometimes do that in my lunchtime actually to practice my swings, because
Hmm.
by like since my birth, I don't see 3 dimensional. So for me, it's quite hard actually to, hit the ball. So
Hmm. And with you sailing around the Atlantic, what is that even like? How long was that?
long, and
Long.
it even felt much longer. So so
Oh,
it
I'm
was not
sure.
me. We were 3 people on a big boat. So we didn't, we had enough space to not literally push each other overboard. Um, but that also meant that I mean, you can't stop the boat in the middle of the ocean, so you have to sail
Right.
24 hours, and you have really long shifts if you're just so little people. like so few people, and it took us 17 days, 10 hours, and 50 minutes, which is quite fast. However,
Wow.
that's not just due to us, but the bigger the boat is, the faster you are. So we had a
Hmm.
little advantage. Yeah.
Hmm. And why did you do it?
We just live once, and I think at least for me, probably for you as well. I think because of your podcast, it's about lifelong learning. It's about challenging yourself and see how far you can go. I mean, not necessarily for selfish reasons, but
Mm,
also what impact you can do in your surrounding. Like some people build like businesses that help the world. Some people love to inspire others, and yeah, I think it was like just showing myself like that I can do it and that I'm strong
right.
enough to do it, and I was. So yeah.
So what made you choose sailing over, let's say, mountain climbing or some other sport or event that you have to push yourself to the limits?
So I like sun, so I'm a good weather sailor. And I find ocean very relaxing. So I think generally nature has positive effects on mental health. And
Hmm.
some people prefer mountains and forests. And for me, it's the sea, especially like the
Hmm.
watercolor. So I'm not sure about which element you prefer most, but for me, it's definitely water.
I actually had a similar experience. I lived in the desert for 6 weeks in a
Wow.
tent, right? And that was, I'd say the same thing. I think being, with nature and in the sunlight and everything was very different experience and kind of refreshing almost in a weird way.
How did you end up in the desert, like camping for 3 weeks?
I actually was doing an anthropology research in Kenya. So I
Oh,
was,
yeah.
yeah, so I was interacting with nomadic tribes there, and there's no houses or anything. So we had to put up tents, and that's kind of how we lived.
I think that's very impressive, Shiva. So I think that's more impressive than
Thank you.
sailing across the Atlantic, to be honest, and
Oh, I
very
don't know.
useful. So, I mean, what did you find out?
Yeah, it's very different, I'd say. Especially things that I noticed that were very common there was polygamy was common, a lot more meat in their diet was common, and they were a lot more fit and active, I would say, than, let's say Western society or modern day society.
You mean like
So
people sitting in front of the microphones just talking?
right now, right. and
Yeah.
and they were very I think they were very easy to please in a way where they would be excited and happy about very little things, which was very refreshing to see. I think get so overwhelmed in our societies that little things affect us and we get upset over, while they're, surviving for food and water. And I saw, I had to collect water samples, and I saw camels literally drinking out of the same water samples that they would get their water from, and it would be contaminated and dirty,
Mm.
and stuff like that. So almost eye-opening to see the difference between the luxuries we have and the things we take for granted versus how other people still live today, like right now.
I think you made one important point. I think being grateful also for little things, and that's something we need to train because,
Hmm.
yes, we are like kind of, how can I say, yeah, we are taking things for granted, and I think it's very important also for happiness to really see
Hmm.
things and recognize things and be grateful, because if you are grateful you can't be scared, you can't be worried, and I think it's yeah, it helps people. It's one component I think that's very important.
I agree. And I wanted to ask you, what was one really big takeaway you had with either polo or, sailing the Atlantic or both that, helped you today, that like still today, that you learned from those events and moments?
So I mean, one reason why I'm doing these things is by nature I'm very scared. I'm scared of,
Mm,
like, not in a way that I not that it's like extraordinary, but generally like I'm more So I worked a long time in risk consulting, crisis management. So I always see all the things that can go wrong. And it's super in business. It's sometimes it's like really not helpful in your private life, because you worry about a lot of things. And I mean, polo and sailing, there's a lot that can go wrong. And I just don't want to accept the fact that I'm scared. I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
decision, how you react to that feelings. And for me, that really helped, to act, make good decisions, and go for things, even though I'm scared. That doesn't mean that I'm like, I wear a lot of protection equipment. We did, when I played polo, and we did a lot of, we had so much safety equipment and safety training before sailing across Atlantic. It was like a cruise ship level, right? So it's not like, I take risks easily, but if you don't, then I mean, you lose, because then you sit at home and you can't enjoy things. You will not achieve things. So it's necessary to
Mm-hmm.
take risks. So that's what I learned.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed that I applaud you for and respect is you mentioned in your other podcast that you were in is that you're very shy, or at
Yeah,
least you used to be, or you try to work on it.
yeah,
And it seems like everything that you're doing is trying to get out of your comfort zone, which is always very, very difficult,
yeah,
right? I always say this quote, you either life is hard for one of two reasons. You're either staying in your comfort zone or you're trying to get out of it.
yeah.
So getting out of it is just as hard as, staying in it because, eventually you regret staying in your comfort zone. But getting out is also hard because it's that mental toughness that I applaud you for trying, sailing around the Atlantic, pushing yourself to the limits, moderating to, get out there and become more exposed and vulnerable almost because when you do things like moderating, you are kind of making yourself a little bit more vulnerable to people, whether it's good or bad critiques. So that's always impressive.
And things can go wrong. I mean, what I do, I'm constantly learning, in the way that I'm reading, I'm listening to podcasts like yours, I'm talking to
Thank you.
people, and like doing trainings and so on. And then it doesn't help you if you just know things. And that's, I think, one of the biggest
Hmm.
mistakes in our culture. You think if you know things, then you're good. No, you're just good when you apply things. And that's a difficult part, because you will not do amazing from the beginning. And especially in moderation, or also for you if you're starting a podcast, you will not do everything like perfect. And even like honestly, like the number of technical screw ups, or like, like I'm shy, I'm not that great with eye contact, or sometimes like I because I was in management consulting very young, I kind of created this shell as protection. So people tell me, oh, you have so much energy, but like when you are like doing, like a speech, then it's like we just can see little of it. You have to work on it, and you yourself see all the things where you can go better, where you are not, are performing up to your expectations. And it's okay, and it's part of growing. And one quote that really stuck in my mind is, the biggest prison is your comfort zone. It's like there are more people in it than all the prisons in the world, and that's really comfortable. It's really nice. And going out there means exposing yourself, setting yourself up for failure, not doing things perfectly. But it's like I learned from my moderation coach. It's like, start simple, and it's really about starting it, and
Hmm.
living with that it will not be perfect the first time, and that's okay. Yeah.
Right. And the worst part about that prison is it's not even locked. You can walk out whenever you want.
Yeah.
And
And actually, one thing, if you are feeling comfortable,
mhm.
then it's on one way a good feeling, but it also means you have learned most stuff that you need to learn, and now it's a step to go further. So I always take it as a
Mhm.
trigger.
That's actually a really good point. I think that's how you grow best.
Yeah.
Is you have to first, reflect on yourself and your thoughts and then you see and if you start seeing yourself being comfortable and happy with where you are and stuff, that's fine, but then that eventually grows into resentment because you're not growing and you're not trying new things. And I think that's where people get frustrated
Yeah.
is, I'm stuck where I am because you've never pushed yourself outside that comfort zone.
I think the most important people for me, like what I'm most grateful for in life and what is really a main um, component of growth is the people around you. So I have really amazing people and that have a great mindset. So the mindset that not, oh, I'm a victim, everything is happening to me, but I can
Hmm.
create, I have an influence on my surrounding, on the future, and like a kind of positive mindset that um, so when I was young, my mom always told to my brother, "Oh, you're so sporty," and my mom told me, "You're really creative," and
Hmm.
like people like to put people in this um,
Like a
baskets, kind
box.
of, or
Uh-huh.
boxes, and this box is just like a photo. It might be like that in the moment, but it doesn't mean that you're supposed to be there and you have to stay there. And I think that's the main thing. It's like, I mean, not everyone will win Olympic medals, but generally you can learn everything, and that's beautiful. So
I like that because people only see you in a snapshot at
yeah,
one particular moment.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's almost like, your personalities, your interests and everything is like a video, but people only see one snapshot of that video, so they see that photo moment
Yeah.
of that 1 second in that video. So that's really interesting, I'd have to say. I like that.
Yeah.
And okay, so, you've pushed yourself outside your limits and you keep pushing yourself, trying to get out of your comfort zone, and now you do things like moderating and stuff with politicians and stuff. How did you create a successful network, and how do you do that from scratch?
I must say I started very early, but you can
Mhm.
start at any point of time. And I think the most important thing is that you're real, you're authentic, and you have good intentions. So my speaking trainer always says everything that you think translates in some kind of muscle movement. And I mean, I think there was a series Lie to Me or something, or also a mentalist. So they are like this micro expressions and stuff. So whatever you think, in some way, the other person will feel it. So there's no way of really pretending people will feel it. It's like, so that's the key thing. And also, instead of uh, that's why I generally don't like the word networking so much. A lot of people go out there with an expectation to get something, and I'm actually doing the opposite. So I'm always thinking, okay, what can I give? What can I give to make the other person's life better? And there, I can't help everyone myself, but what I do to network is that I constantly screen what people need and what people have, and I matchmake. So, and that's how I can maximize the value I can create for other people. And I think that's very nice. And yeah, that's basically, it's not my own awesomeness or something, but I try to add value to people. I generally enjoy the company of people. I try to learn from them, and I always try to see the good in them. And one important thing I realized I want to especially tell people that are younger, not that experienced, not that accomplished, that you always have to give something. And that's what I realized when I got my first management award when I was 19, and I was small and little, and everyone was like CEO and owners of companies. So you can give something, and what you can give is um, you can give positivity, energy, and you can listen to people. They are usually super happy to share their experience. You can bring in new ideas, you can make them feel comfortable to be themselves. And already these things are super helpful and beautiful for people, because I mean, we are always talking about people, we are not talking about machines, right? So, and I think that's important because a lot of people think, oh, I can just start networking when I'm successful. That's wrong. You can start now, and you should.
Yeah, it's almost like people think you become successful, then you network,
Yeah.
versus
No.
how most people become maybe everyone becomes successful as they first network,
Yeah.
and it's who you are, it's who you know is how you get there.
Or they
And
start networking when they need something, and that also doesn't work,
yeah,
right? So,
right. You said it has to be a selfless intent.
and also
So
it takes time to build up a network. So it's like, if people say, "Oh, I want to have a network now," or like, "I want to have a friend now," it's the same. It's like it takes time. And also, I mean, I heard a good quote of someone recently, and the person said, "I stay where I'm treated well." And that's another thing I learned. So you can't chase people. I met people that I found really amazing. I would have liked to be friends with them, but they didn't feel the same
mhm.
about me, and that's okay. And so then there's no point of chasing. So just focus on the people that appreciate you.
Definitely. And I think, like you said, networking has like a bad rap
Yeah.
where people think it's manipulative or greedy, selfish. You're
Yeah.
doing it for a reason. It's almost got the same stereotype as like a salesman or like a car salesman or someone that's just
Insurance
trying to
is
get you
worse.
insurance. They're trying to just,
Yeah.
get you to buy something, and they don't really care. It's almost like that where they have like a selfish intent.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of successful people say exactly what you're saying, and that is ask what you can do first and build that rapport, build that connection and strength with somebody. And it doesn't have to, and I find it interesting what you said, because often you think, well, what can I offer a CEO? What can I offer someone that's much more successful than me or has much more experience, time, money, whatever? And that's, encouragement. That's, posting, if they have a new company or something, posting it on your social media, giving them, a way to reach them more and stuff. So there's little things you can do to show that you appreciate or want to help. And I think that that's a very good idea that you had.
Also, one thing, because you're kind of mentioning it, staying in touch. A lot of people meet people and then they find it hard to stay in touch, and there are different ways to do it. So with some people, you met them, you're not close enough to call them or write them a WhatsApp every week or something. But but then you can follow them on Instagram and like their pictures and comment it occasionally, or on LinkedIn. And but not, oh great, but really think about what they say, and really kind of make conversation with them. And yeah, I think that's important, to make an effort to stay in touch.
Like a genuine connection, not
Yeah.
just cool post or something, right? You respond,
That
you
might have been a
interact.
bot as well. You never know. Like if you are just using like fire, fire, fire or something, it could also have been a bot, you know.
Right. So, okay, so here in your last podcast too, you talked a little bit about networking, and you talked about how you don't have to be very successful to talk to very successful people. And I like that idea, and we kind of talked about it already. And you talked about how the way you speak with someone is you kind of have to see them on the same level and not put them on a pedestal. So I want to ask you, what if someone is having not that problem with talking to somebody, but more, and I've actually been talking about this a little bit recently, on my next episode and things like that, is imposter syndrome. So when someone feels like they're not who, or someone might not think that they are who they think they are, right? So you feel like you're an imposter. You feel like you're not actually supposed to be where you are. So how does someone what advice would you have for someone that is dealing with that and trying to connect with somebody? Maybe they're afraid that they're going to get called out or something.
Okay, I have that all the time. And honestly, I know a lot of people that have that. My experience is more that there are not that many people that don't have that. That, I mean, it's like, I think it's like a healthy fear of failure, and also is very high expectations. What you find a lot in people that push themselves forward all the time. Um, and I mean, what helps are, I mean, for example, like there's some techniques to work on that. It's like journaling. So I do that every day. I write down, okay, what I'm grateful for. So I get into a positive,
Mm-hmm.
state.
Headspace.
And I
Mm-hmm.
write down, okay, what did I achieve yesterday or today, depends on when you're doing it. What did you learn? What were your breakthroughs? Because a lot of time, I mean, I always feel that I could do more. Other people tell me, you're doing so much, we don't know how you do it. And
Right.
basically, but you yourself don't see it. So it helps to really write it down and have a look at it. It's like, oh, actually, I did quite a lot today. Like but you wouldn't realize it if you wouldn't write it down. So that's one thing. Also, get feedback, and remember it, write it down. So if you feel not that secure, like not that amazing, you can have a look at it. Or sometimes if I have really bad moments, because that doesn't happen that often, I would ask a friend, a good friend, and it's like, hey, for example, Tabea, what do you think I'm really good at? And then they will tell you. I mean, that's um and otherwise, I mean, there are different ways. I mean, you can work with affirmations. And what I find helps the best, if against insecurity, it's not about you. It's not about me. And if you have this imposter syndrome, you're too much focused on yourself. So then you need to go back and think about, okay, what's my vision? What do I want to achieve that is bigger than myself? And that stops you thinking too much about yourself. And that is actually, I think, the most important part. And it's easy to get caught up, to be honest. I have that sometimes, I post something and a lot of people are commenting on LinkedIn, and then you get, oh my God. And then you always need to remind yourself, okay, what is it, what you want to achieve? And for me, um, the key thing, I always think, okay, if I'm not there anymore one day, I'm dead. Unfortunately, that will happen to every one of us. What is a legacy I want to leave behind? And for me, it's personally, I want that I made people feel better. I want that I inspired them, motivated them to go for their dreams, feel good about themselves. Because let's be honest, like the biggest challenges we all face are in our head, and what we need is like people that lift us up, people that motivate us, and like just supporting each other to stay in the positive state, and to create things that are important for the world, for the future, have a positive impact on other people.
Wow, I actually love that. You talked about how you said switching the focus from me to what can I do for you? And I think that is exactly it. That's exactly what imposter syndrome is. It's you thinking about yourself,
Yeah,
right? You're thinking,
unfortunately.
right.
Yeah.
It's like your own inner insecurity of thinking, well, what do they think about me? Well, it doesn't matter. What matters is what are you doing for others? And I like that a lot. You did mention also, you said a healthy it could be considered a healthy amount of fear. How so? How do you think this could be considered a healthy towards what you're doing?
It goes back to being too comfortable. So, for example, so usually what you will do, you will learn all the time, try to apply different techniques in the way, different technologies, and so on. So you don't get to the point where you are super comfortable. And so obviously there's always an increased risk that something goes wrong, and you are not in the state that you feel, oh, I completely mastered it, I could do it, with closed eyes or something. Because if you're at the state, you'll move on to the next thing. Um,
Right.
yeah,
That's true. Right. So it's you only feel that because you're outside your comfort zone,
yeah. So it's not
almost. Hmm.
necessarily a bad thing.
Hmm. That's very true. Wow, that's that was good advice.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you, I guess lastly, what so this, this podcast is called Learn or Be Learned. What is something that you want to leave the audience with that either you learned from others or you want others to learn from you?
I think my biggest learning, and I kind of touched on it, is that all the times where I kind of failed or I didn't achieve things, it was not because I wasn't good enough. It was because I thought I wasn't good enough. And so I think mindset is the most critical thing we need to master, and then everything is possible. I think that's the biggest learning I can give to everyone. Yeah.
Right. So you're saying your biggest barrier is yourself almost.
You're like the only limit is what you think you are capable of.
Mm-hmm. You've heard of probably visualization and stuff
Yeah.
where you consider yourself and how your goals, your ideas, where you want to see yourself. It's almost like you visualize, you affirmate what you are. So if you say like I'm not good enough, I can't do it, it's not fair. Like that's you embody what you think. So I like that too. I think your mindset is very underrated for people don't talk about it enough that
Yeah.
that is your only stop. That's the only thing that really defines, where how successful you can be.
Yeah, you need to think big. That's also one thing.
Mhm.
And that has nothing to do with arrogance. It's just that you need to have something meaningful, what you feel you're working towards and you look forward to. And so it's good when you dream big, and you should, and go for it.
Right. And to wrap that with what we said at the beginning, you got to jump
Yeah.
because you can't just learn things and sit back. You have to also get out of your comfort zone and jump. And that's the only way you'll reach big things.
Like, find people that support you and you support. I think that's one big thing. And the greatest
Hmm.
thing in life are amazing people.
Right. I guess I want to ask a quick side question. Have you noticed your friend groups change over time as you know, do more different things, more things, successful things?
Yes, so when I was younger, I had the feeling I'm growing out of the people around me like out of two small shoes. Like a
Uh-huh.
small child that grows fast and has to change their clothes all the time. So I'm not that proud of that.
Hmm.
But actually, I found amazing people. I moved around a lot, and in every continent and city where I lived, and so on. Some few, like I call them human gems, that I found, and I made an effort to keep them. And they are also, they have a growth mindset. They are very friendly, like super good people that have good intentions, that are very active, and they constantly develop as well. And
Hmm.
so I don't have that anymore since I found these people. And that's beautiful. I mean, I'm still occasionally meeting amazing people that I add to that network.
Hmm.
But, and that's why I mean, you need to find people that grow with you and that support you,
Right.
not some that are holding you back.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Priscilla, I appreciate you being on this show. I think the audience is going to love this episode. You had some very insightful things. This was
Thank you,
great.
Shiva. It was I didn't know what to expect, but it was a very nice and pleasant interview. So anytime again. And
Yeah.
I find your podcast very interesting and entertaining. So I will definitely
Okay,
continue
awesome.
listening to it.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much.